My daughter and her husband planned my funeral while I was still breathing, so I gave them something to bury. My name is Dolores Grant. I'm 64 years old, and I've lived in Augusta, Georgia, all my life. I spent decades working 2 jobs, raising my daughter with love and building a home with my bare hands, only to overhear her whispering about life insurance and funeral plans while I was still breathing in the next room. You ever love someone so deeply, only to realize you were just a step in their blueprint? That moment broke me, but I didn't break for long. If this story resonated with your soul, hit the subscribe button and let me know which country you're watching from in the comments. The house was quiet, save for the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old wooden floors settling in the Augusta night. I lay in my bed, the quilt my mama made heavy across my chest, but sleep wouldn't come. At 64, I'd earned my sleepless nights, decades of double shifts at the diner and the nursing home, raising Tamika with every ounce of my heart, building this home with calloused hands. But tonight, the air felt different. Thick was something I couldn't name. I shifted, the springs of my mattress groaning, when I heard it. Whispers, sharp and urgent, slipping through the thin wall between my bedroom and the living room. Tamika's voice, low but clear, cut through the dark. The policy matures next month. She's already weak. My breath caught, a fist tightening in my chest. I strained to hear more, my body still as stone. Derek's voice came next, smooth as ever, but with an edge that made my skin prickle. All we gotta do is act fast, just keep her on the pills. The words landed like a slap. My daughter, my son-in-law, talking about me, like I was already a ghost. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to believe I'd misheard, that this was some misunderstanding born of exhaustion. But the cold truth settled in my bones. They were talking about a life insurance policy, my life insurance policy, and those pills, those little white capsules Tamika insisted I take for my blood pressure, suddenly felt like something else entirely. I didn't move, didn't dare breathe too loud. I lay there, pretending to sleep, while my mind raced. Was I sick? Had I been sick all along, and they were just planning for the inevitable? Or were they? No, I couldn't let myself think it. Not yet, but the seed was planted, and it was growing thorns. Morning came, and I played my part. I shuffled into the kitchen, my housecoat dragging, my steps slow, like I was carrying the weight of the world. Tamika was at the stove, stirring oatmeal, her smile bright as always. Too bright, maybe. "Mornin', Mama," she said, setting a bowl in front of me. "You sleep okay?" I nodded, my eyes on her hands. Those hands I'd held when she took her first steps, the ones I'd bandaged when she fell off her bike. "Slept fine," I lied, my voice rough. "Just feeling a little tired." Derek sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, his coffee untouched. He glanced up, his eyes flicking over me like I was a piece of furniture. "You should take your pills, Ma," he said, not looking at me again. "Keep you steady." I forced a smile, my heart hammering. "Yeah, you're right." I reached for the orange bottle on the counter, the one Tamika refilled every week, and palmed the pills instead of swallowing them. I tucked them into my pocket when she turned back to the stove. The day dragged on, each moment heavy with questions I didn't want to ask. I watched Tamika closely, her laugh, her quick glances at Derek, the way she hovered when I stood up, like she was waiting for me to collapse. I remembered the girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, her small body curled against mine. Where was that girl now? Had I missed something? Some crack in her heart that let this coldness in? That night, I sat alone in my room, the pills in my hand. 4 little white ovals, innocent looking, but heavy with possibility. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to find them playing the frail old lady. The next morning, I told Tamika I was going to the library, needed some new books to keep me busy. She offered to drive me, her eyes sharp, but I waved her off. "I'll take the bus," I said. "Need the air." The pharmacist at the corner store was a young man barely out of school, with kind eyes and a nervous habit of adjusting his glasses. I slid the pills across the counter in a small plastic bag. "Can you tell me what these are?" I asked, keeping my voice low. He frowned, turning one over in his gloved hand. "Where'd you get these, ma'am?" "They're mine," I said, firm but quiet. "Supposed to be for blood pressure, but I just want to be sure." He nodded, typing something into his computer. Minutes stretched like hours, my pulse loud in my ears. Finally, he looked up, his face tight. "These aren't for blood pressure. They're sedatives, strong ones. Not something you'd get without a prescription." The world tilted. I gripped the counter, my knees weak, but not from any pills. "You sure?" I whispered. He nodded. "You should talk to your doctor, and maybe whoever gave these to you." I left the store, the bag of pills burning a hole in my purse. Sedatives, not for my health, but to keep me docile, foggy, weak. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined, a knife twisting in my gut. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, and Derek, that smooth-talking man I'd welcomed into my home, into my family. What were they planning? And how long had they been planning it? When I got home, Tamika was waiting, her arms crossed, her smile gone. "You were gone a while, Mama," she said, her voice sharp. "Library close early." I shrugged, keeping my face blank. "Got caught up reading, you know how I get." She studied me, her eyes searching for something I wasn't ready to give. "You feeling okay? You look off." I let my shoulders slump, let my voice waver just enough. "Just tired, baby. Think I'll lie down." Her face softened, but there was something in her eyes, relief, maybe, or something colder. "Take your pills, Mama. They'll help." I nodded, slipping into my room, my heart pounding. I was done being the prey. If they thought I was weak, I'd let them believe it. I'd play their game, but I'd be writing the rules. Over the next few days, I leaned into the role. I moved slower, let my hands tremble when I reached for my glass, let my words slur just a touch. Tamika noticed, her hovering more frequent, her voice sweeter. "You sure you're okay, Mama?" she'd ask, her hand on my shoulder, her eyes darting to Derek. Derek was quieter, but I caught him watching me, his gaze sharp, calculating. One night, I overheard them again, their voices low in the kitchen while I napped on the couch. "We can't wait much longer," Derek said, his voice tight. "The payout's too big to mess this up." Tamika hesitated, her voice softer. "She's my mama, Derek. It's not easy." "You think I don't know that," he snapped. "But we're in too deep. You want that house in Savannah, the business. This is how we get it." My stomach churned, but I kept my breathing even, my eyes closed. A house in Savannah, a business, my life, reduced to a dollar sign. I wanted to scream, to storm in there and demand answers, but I held back. I needed more. I needed to know how far they'd go. The next morning, I called my old friend Ruby, the only person I trusted to keep her mouth shut. We met at the park, far from prying eyes. Ruby was all fire and no nonsense. Her braids pulled tight, her eyes narrowing as I told her everything. "They're poisoning you, Dolores," she said, her voice low but fierce. "You need to get out of that house." "I can't," I said, my voice breaking. "Not yet. If I leave, they'll know I'm onto them. I need proof." Ruby shook her head, her lips tight. "You're playing with fire, girl. What if they up the dose? What if they—" "I know." I cut her off, my hands shaking. "But I've spent my whole life fighting for what's mine. I'm not running now." She sighed, grabbing my hand. "Then you better be smart about it. Watch your back, and don't eat or drink anything they give you." I nodded, my resolve hardening. I wasn't just fighting for my life. I was fighting for the truth, for the daughter I thought I knew, for the home I'd built with my own hands. And if Tamika and Derek thought they could bury me, they were about to learn just how deep my roots ran. That night, I poured my pills into a glass of water, watching them dissolve into nothing. I'd keep playing weak, keep letting them think they had me, but every step they took, I was watching. Every word they whispered, I was listening. And when the time came, I'd give them something to bury. Just not what they expected. Have you ever played weak just to catch someone red-handed? Drop a yes or never had to in the comments. I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of those dissolved pills still lingering in my mind. A bitter taste that had nothing to do with medicine. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears and makes every creak sound like a warning. Tamika and Derek had left for the evening. Some errand, they said. Their voices too casual, too rehearsed. I didn't trust it. I didn't trust them. Not anymore. My hands trembled as I stood, but not from weakness. It was rage, pure and hot, coursing through me. I'd spent days playing their game, shuffling around like a fragile old woman, letting them think they were winning. But tonight I was done pretending. I needed proof, something solid to hold on to, before I could confront the betrayal cutting me deeper than any knife. Their whispers about insurance policies and pills had lit a fire in me, and I wasn't about to let it burn out. I moved quietly down the hall, my bare feet soft against the worn floorboards. Tamika's room was at the end, the door slightly ajar. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the knob. This was my daughter's space, the girl I'd raised, the one I'd sung to sleep and taught to braid her hair. Crossing this line felt like admitting she was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. But I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room smelled of her lavender lotion, a scent that used to comfort me. I ignored the pang in my chest and went straight for the dresser. My fingers rifled through papers, bills, receipts, nothing unusual, until I found a locked metal box tucked under a pile of scarves. My heart thudded. I'd seen Tamika with that box once, her eyes darting away when I asked about it. I grabbed a hairpin from the dresser and worked the lock, my hands steadier than they had any right to be. It clicked open. Inside was a folded document, crisp and official looking. My breath hitched as I scanned it. A will, my will, or so it claimed. But I'd never written this. My name was scrawled at the bottom, a clumsy imitation of my signature, and Derek was listed as sole executor. Everything, my house, my savings, the life I'd scraped together, was to go to him, not Tamika. Derek. My stomach twisted. Beneath the will was another paper, a life insurance policy I'd never seen before. $500,000, with Tamika as the beneficiary. My name was on it, my birth date, my social security number, but I'd never signed up for this. Had she used my identity, stolen it to cash in on my death? I sat back, the papers trembling in my hands. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. My daughter, my own blood, building a future on my grave. I wanted to scream, to tear the paper to shreds, but I forced myself to breathe. I needed to be smart, smarter than them. I tucked the documents back exactly as I'd found them, locked the box, and slipped out of the room, my mind racing with what came next. The next morning, I called Reverend Minnie, my oldest friend, the one who'd stood by me when my husband walked out, when Tamika was born, when the world tried to break me. Her voice was warm over the phone, but it sharpened when I told her what I'd found. "Dolores, you need to protect yourself," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Come to the church. I know people who can help." I met her that afternoon at the small brick church on the edge of town, where the pews smelled of polish and prayer. Minnie was waiting with two others, a retired notary named Clara, her glasses perched on her nose, and a lawyer named Marcus, whose calm demeanor hid a razor-sharp mind. I told them everything: the pills, the whispers, the forged will, the mystery insurance policy. Clara's eyes widened, but Marcus just nodded, like he'd seen this kind of betrayal before. "You need a new will," Marcus said, his voice steady. "One they can't touch, and you need to document everything. If they're planning what I think, you can't leave room for doubt." Minnie squeezed my hand. "We got you, Dolores. You're not alone in this." That evening, in the quiet of Minnie's office, I signed a new will. My house, my savings. Everything would go to a trust for the church's youth program. Not a dime to Tamika or Derek. It hurt, writing her out like that, but I couldn't ignore the truth staring me in the face. Marcus suggested a video confession, something to seal my story if the worst happened. I sat in front of his phone, the red light blinking, and poured out my heart. "My name is Dolores Grant," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "I'm 64 years old, and I believe my daughter, Tamika, and her husband Derek are trying to harm me. I found sedatives they told me were for blood pressure. I found a forged will and an insurance policy I never signed. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. I'm doing this to protect myself because I've spent my life fighting, and I'm not done yet." The words felt like a weight lifting, but also like a door closing on the life I thought I'd had. When we finished, Marcus burned the video to a USB drive and handed it to me. "Keep this safe," he said, "somewhere they'll never look." Back home, I played my part. Slow steps, weak smiles, the perfect picture of frailty. But I was moving pieces they didn't see. I ordered 2 small cameras online, the kind you can hide in a smoke detector or a clock. When they arrived, I set them up. One in my bedroom, angled to catch anyone coming in, and one in the kitchen, where Tamika always handed me those pills. The cameras linked to an app on my phone, recording every moment. If they made a move, I'd have it on tape. Tamika noticed something was off. "You seem quiet, Mama," she said one morning, her eyes searching mine as she set a glass of water and those damn pills in front of me. "Just tired," I said, letting my voice waver. I palmed the pills, same as always, and sipped the water. Her gaze lingered, like she was trying to see through me, but I kept my face soft, my eyes distant. Derek was worse. He started hovering, asking questions about my day, my plans, my health. "You been to the doctor lately, Ma?" he asked one night, his tone too casual. "Might be good to get a checkup." "I'm fine," I said, my voice small, but my mind sharp. He was fishing, testing me. I wondered how long they'd been planning this, how many nights they'd sat in my house, eating my food, plotting my end. That night, I checked the camera footage. Tamika had come into my room while I was at the store, rifling through my dresser, her movements quick and nervous. She didn't find the USB drive. I'd hidden it in a slit in my old Bible, the one Mama gave me, but seeing her there in my space felt like a violation I couldn't shake. I saved the footage, labeled it, and sent a copy to Minnie for safekeeping. The tension in the house grew thicker, like a storm waiting to break. I caught Derek staring at me over dinner, his fork paused midair, his eyes cold. Tamika was quieter now, her smiles forced, her hands fidgety. I wondered if she felt guilty, if some part of her still loved me, or was it all gone, swallowed by greed? I didn't sleep much anymore. Every creak, every shadow made my heart race. But I wasn't afraid. Not really. I was angry. Angry that my daughter could betray me. Angry that I'd let Derek into my home. Angry that they thought they could outsmart me. I'd built this life from nothing, and I wasn't about to let them take it. The cameras kept rolling, catching every glance, every whisper. The USB drive stayed hidden, my insurance against their plans. I'd given them a stage to play their parts, but I was rewriting the ending. They wanted something to bury? I'd give them truth, cold and hard, and let them choke on it. The cameras hummed silently, their tiny lenses catching every move in the house, while I clutched the USB drive hidden in my Bible, its weight a reminder of the truth I was guarding. Tamika's nervous glances and Derek's cold stares had become a rhythm, a pulse of deceit that thrummed through my home. I played my part, shuffling steps, trembling hands, the frail mother they expected. But inside, I was steel, forged by betrayal, and ready for whatever came next. It was a Tuesday evening when the air shifted, sharp and heavy, like the moment before lightning. I was in the living room, pretending to doze, when Tamika's voice cut through the quiet, high and frantic. "Mama fell again. She's barely breathing." She cried into her phone, her words loud enough to echo through the house. I cracked my eyes open, just enough to see her pacing, her free hand twisting her hair, her face a mask of panic. Derek stood nearby, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. My heart thudded, but I stayed still, my breathing shallow to sell the act. I'd prepared for this. 2 days ago, I'd called my old friend Ruby, who knew a paramedic crew willing to play along for a woman in trouble. I'd told them to expect a call, to come ready, but not to rush me to any hospital. Now, as Tamika's voice trembled on the phone, I knew the moment had come. The paramedics arrived fast, their boots heavy on my porch. Tamika let them in, her eyes wide, her hands fluttering. "She's over there," she said, pointing to me on the couch. "I don't know what happened. She just collapsed." I kept my eyes closed, my body limp, as the paramedics knelt beside me. One of them, a woman with a calm voice, checked my pulse, her fingers cool against my wrist. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" she asked, loud enough for Tamika to hear. I gave the faintest nod, just as we'd planned. "She's stable," the paramedic said after a moment, her tone professional, but with a hint of the script we'd agreed on. "Pulse is strong, no signs of respiratory distress." Tamika's face froze, her mouth opening and closing, like a fish pulled from water. I guess she's better now," she stammered, her eyes darting to Derek, who shifted his weight, his jaw tight. The paramedics packed up, one of them slipping me a quick wink as they left. I sat up slowly, rubbing my temples, playing the confused old lady. "What happened, baby?" I asked, my voice soft. I must have dozed off. Tamika forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You scared me, Mama. I thought you were gone." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I wondered if there was still some love in her, some shred of the girl I'd raised. But then Derek put a hand on her shoulder, and her face hardened, closing off whatever truth might have slipped through. They didn't know I'd seen the crack in their plan. The hesitation in Tamika's eyes. What was she playing at? Was this emergency a test? A rehearsal for something bigger? I didn't have answers, but I had time, and I wasn't wasting it. The next morning, while Tamika and Derek were out, I slipped into their room again, my heart pounding as I opened Tamika's laptop. The screen glowed to life, and there it was, left open like she'd been too careless or too confident. A document titled "Celebration of Life." My breath caught as I clicked it. A funeral flyer, my funeral flyer, my name in bold letters, a photo of me from last Christmas, and a date, 2 weeks from now. At the bottom, a venue was listed, Augusta Community Center, reserved for a memorial gathering. My hands shook as I read it again, the words blurring through tears I refused to let fall. She'd planned it all, down to the flowers, lilies, my favorite. Had she been imagining this moment for months, picking out details while I cooked her dinner? The betrayal was a living thing, clawing at my chest, but it also lit a fire. If they wanted me gone, I'd give them a show they'd never forget. I closed the laptop, my mind racing. I couldn't confront them, not yet. I needed to turn their plan against them, to make them think they'd won. That night, I called Ruby again, her voice a lifeline in the dark. "I'm gonna fake my death," I said, the words sounding wild even to me. "They want a funeral, I'll give them one." Ruby didn't hesitate. "You sure about this, Dolores? It's a big move." "I'm sure," I said, my voice steady. "I need them to show their hand." With Ruby's help, I reached out to Marcus, the lawyer, and Clara, the notary. They connected me with a friend in the coroner's office who could file a fake death certificate for a price. It felt surreal, planning my own end, but every step brought me closer to the truth. I recorded another video, updating my confession with the flyer and the fake emergency, and hid it with the USB drive in my Bible. The next day, I staged it. I waited until Tamika was home, Derek out for the evening. I poured a glass of water, let it slip from my hands, and collapsed in the kitchen, right where the camera could see. Tambu Fen. Tamika's scream was raw, her hands shaking as she rushed to my side. "Mama, oh God, Mama," she cried, dialing 911 again. But I was ready. The paramedics, my paramedics, came quickly, pronounced me gone at the scene, and wheeled me out under a sheet. Tamika's sobs followed me. Real or not, I couldn't tell. At the hospital, they moved me to a private room, where Ruby waited. "You're crazy, Dolores Grant," she whispered, squeezing my hand. I stayed dead for now, hidden at Ruby's place, watching the cameras on my phone. Tamika and Derek moved fast, too fast. They started calling venues, confirming the celebration date. I watched them toast with wine in my kitchen, their faces lit with something like relief. My heart broke, but my resolve didn't. They thought I was gone. They thought they'd won. But I was still breathing, and I was coming for them. I stayed hidden at Ruby's, my world reduced to the glow of my phone screen, where the camera footage played out like a movie I never wanted to star in. Tamika and Derek moved through my house with an ease that made my skin crawl, sorting my things, planning my funeral, like it was a party they'd been waiting to throw. Their wine glasses clinked in my kitchen, their laughter a blade in my chest. But I held tight to my anger, letting it fuel me. They thought they'd buried me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The day of the celebration of life came, and I slipped into the Augusta Community Center, through a side door, Reverend Minnie at my side. Her hand was steady on my arm, her eyes fierce, with the kind of faith that moves mountains. "You ready for this, Dolores?" she whispered, her voice low in the shadowed hallway. "I've been ready my whole life," I said, adjusting the bright red dress I'd chosen. Bold, alive, impossible to ignore. I wasn't here to blend in. I was here to burn their lies to the ground. We crept to the back of the church's main hall, hidden behind a curtain near the organ. The pews were filled with faces I knew, neighbors, church folks, old co-workers, all gathered to mourn a woman who was still breathing. Tamika stood at the front, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, her black dress perfectly pressed. Derek was beside her, his face solemn, shaking hands with mourners who pressed envelopes of cash into his palms, their whispers of condolence mingling with the soft hum of gospel music. My stomach churned as I watched Tamika's tears, each one a performance that cut deeper than the last. Was any of it real? Did she feel even a flicker of the love we'd shared? Or had greed swallowed it all? I gripped Minnie's hand, grounding myself as Derek stepped to the podium, his voice smooth as he began his speech. "She was good to us," he said, his eyes scanning the crowd, his tone practiced. "Dolores was a mother, a provider, a rock, and she's in a better place now." The words were a lie so thick I could taste it. A better place. I was right here, alive and ready to shatter their charade. Minnie squeezed my hand, her nod barely perceptible. It was time. I stepped out from behind the curtain, my red dress blazing against the muted tones of the room. The organist faltered, notes stumbling into silence. Heads turned, gasps rippling through the crowd like a wave. Tamika's face went pale, her tissue frozen mid-dab. Derek's mouth hung open, his words choking in his throat. I walked down the aisle, my steps deliberate, my eyes locked on them. The room was a blur of stunned faces, but I didn't care. This was my moment. "You planned my funeral," I said, my voice clear and strong, cutting through the silence. "Good. I came to see it for myself." Chaos erupted, whispers turned to shouts. Chairs scraped as people stood, their eyes darting between me and the couple at the front. Tamika staggered back, her hand clutching Derek's arm. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking, but I couldn't tell if it was shock or shame. Derek recovered faster, his face hardening. This is a mistake," he stammered, his hands raised like he could push the truth away. She's confused." "Confused," I said, my laugh sharp enough to cut glass. "No, Derek, I've never been clearer." I turned to the crowd, my heart pounding, but my resolve unbreakable. They thought they could bury me. They thought wrong. I nodded to Minnie, who moved to the projector at the back of the room. The screen flickered to life, and there it was, my kitchen, my bedroom, captured by the cameras I'd hidden. The footage played, Tamika slipping sedatives into my water, Derek whispering about the insurance payout, their late-night talks about the house in Savannah, the business they'd build on my grave. The crowd gasped again, murmurs swelling into outrage. Tamika's face crumpled, her hands covering her mouth as the truth played out for everyone to see. Derek tried to bolt, but Marcus, the lawyer, was already at the door, blocking his path with a calm that belied the storm. "You're not going anywhere," Marcus said, his voice low but firm. The police were waiting outside, tipped off by Ruby and Minnie the moment I'd died. They stepped into the hall, badges glinting, as the footage looped, sealing Tamika and Derek's fate. The crowd parted as the officers moved forward, their faces grim. "Tamika Grant, Derek Holmes," one of them said. "You're under arrest for fraud, attempted murder, and identity theft." Tamika's knees buckled, her sobs real now, raw and broken. "Mama, I'm sorry," she choked out as the cuffs clicked around her wrists. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to see my little girl in those tear-streaked eyes. But all I saw was the forged will, the funeral flyer, the pills meant to steal my life." "You made your choice," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "Now live with it." Derek said nothing, his jaw tight as they led him out, his eyes avoiding mine. The crowd watched in stunned silence, their envelopes of condolence money still clutched in their hands, now a testament to the lie they'd almost bought. I kept my house, my savings, my life. Marcus filed a civil suit the next day, ensuring every cent Tamika and Derek had schemed for would be tied up in court for years. The church rallied around me, their support a balm to the wound my daughter had left. Ruby and Minnie stayed close, their presence a reminder that family isn't always blood. It's the ones who stand by you when the world tries to break you. I stood in my kitchen that night, the same one where Tamika had handed me those pills, where I'd faked my collapse. The house felt different now, quieter but not empty. It was mine, earned through decades of sweat and love, and no one could take that from me. I looked out the window at the Augusta night, the stars bright against the dark, and felt a fire still burning inside me. They thought I was a coffin, away from silence. Turns out, I was just getting started. If this story made you clutch your heart, go ahead and subscribe, because these stories, they're real, raw, and sometimes too close to home. What's one thing you've learned about trust from this story? Drop it in the comments. Somebody out there needs your wisdom.